Not very encouraging news for sure today on Alim McNeill.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's the first day of April, everybody. Tuesday, April 1st. Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network. What's happening, everyone? Matt Dery with you. Again on a Tuesday, April 1 and a Wednesday, April 2. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. The great Ben Raven, Lions beat reporter from MLive.com, will be back in town tomorrow. He's covering the NFL owners meetings and all the chatter that's going on. Brad Holmes talking, Dan Campbell talking today. Ben will join us tomorrow on this very podcast as we'll get some thoughts on from Ben on what Holmes and Campbell had to say and all of that and what we've been talking about the last couple of days right here on Locked On Lions. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Looking for tickets? Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on all social platforms. And of course, please subscribe and check us out on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. If you are an everydayer and watch or listen to the show daily, we thank you. Thanks for being with us daily. And of course, if you want to be on the show, you can. Check us out at speakpipe.com/Dery podcast page. And you too can be our call of the day. We'll do another one on Thursday. So get your submissions in to be our call of the day. Dan Campbell talked today. We'll get into that. The defensive line room, which many of you and many of me, yours truly, believe the Lions need to add to. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell both might not agree with that. We'll get into that coming up momentarily. We did not do mock draft Monday yesterday. We will do mock draft Tuesday today. Bucky Brooks, draft analyst, NFL.com. His latest mock has the Lions going offense at 28. We'll get into that coming up momentarily. And Lions put in for 3 rule changes. Not 1, not 2, but 3 strikes, 3 swings and misses on the Lion rule changes that they proposed. We'll get into that today on Locked On Lions as well. All right, so Dan Campbell did talk today, and the news on Alim McNeill is not the best. If you remember last year, it was week 15, Bills in town. Lions get throttled by Josh Allen and company, Sean McDermott's club, and Alim McNeill in that game in week 15 tore his ACL. It takes a while to get back, right? And we knew that Alim McNeill likely wasn't going to be ready for training camp and maybe not the start of the year. Today, when asked when he thinks McNeill is coming back, Lions coach Dan Campbell told reporters down at the Breakers in West Palm Beach, quote, obviously it's not going to be training camp or probably even the early part of the season, but we will get him back. Lions, of course, signed McNeill to an extension during the season last year. He is clearly their best defensive lineman, not named Aiden Hutchinson, but he's a force on the interior. He's an excellent player. So Alim McNeill not going to be back. My first thought on this is, okay, you got DJ Reader. You've got Levi Onwuzurike. You've got Roy. He's here, he's there, he's every effing where. Lopez. Broderick Martin, remember him? 2 years of nothing, but hey, he's still on the roster. Let's go, Big Brod. You've got some pieces. Mekhi Wingo. You won't have the commish, John Kaminsky. Pour some out for Big John as he has decided to retire after 9 years in the league. But without Alim McNeill, maybe until October, maybe even November, what are you going to do? Again, last year, I mean, he was 11th overall in PFF grade among defensive tackles at a 79.6. So you got to figure, all right, if there's somebody there at 28 or at 60 in the draft, Lions got to think about that defensive line. But what's interesting is Brad Holmes said yesterday he really likes the defensive line and thinks they're kind of full there. Today, Dan Campbell said, quote, to get Davenport back, certainly Hutch is coming back. What we did with Mac early in the fall, we added Lopez with Reader. until we get those guys back. Mekhi Wingo is on injury, but we feel good about where we're at. So it's not necessary that the Lions are definitely adding to the D line. Campbell adds. We're not done either. That's the point. We're not done. But Campbell said, we don't know when. Maybe it will be in the draft. We're looking at everything. It could be after the draft. It could be any time. But at this point, with where we're at, we do like where we are at on the D line. End quote. That's an interesting comment. Now, again, Lions don't usually tip their hand. Brad Holmes at 28 is going to take the best player on their board. I don't think it's going to be a running back. I don't think it's going to be a quarterback. All right. But you just never know. And I'm going to tell you something right now that might surprise you. Well, it surprised me. But I'm going to tell you not to be shocked, not to be stunned if this occurs. And that is the following. Would the Lions dare take a receiver at 28? Would they dare? If there's somebody they think is a stud, would they take a receiver at 28? And I say this because today, Dan Campbell talked about that the team needs to get younger at wide receiver and that they will be adding some receiving depth in the draft. Quote on the receivers from Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell said, quote, love that group. Talk about the receivers. But we were fortunate that we got out last year during the season, for the most part, unscathed as far as injuries and things of that nature. That group, Tim Patrick, Khalif Raymond, Saint, J-Mo, those guys that we've got have been big for us. We would love to bring in more competition, particularly some youth. That would help, and let them all mix it up. Get in there and see where it all falls. So the Lions could, and this is from Justin Rogers at Detroit Football Network, Lions will likely add at least 3 receivers between now and the start of the offseason program. Patrick and Raymond are both over 30. They're on expiring deals. Jameson Williams, of course, likely going to have his 5th-year option picked up. How crazy would that be if Emeka Egbuka or somebody like that, the kid from Ohio State, somebody like that was sitting there at number 28? Will the Lions actually take a wide receiver? Egbuka is a good player. Don't get me wrong. Heck, Matthew Golden, the kid out of Texas, is a good player. Some people have him going in the first round. I wouldn't, before today, I would have told you that's crazy. That's nuts. That's not happening. Now I'm not sitting here ruling it out. Here's Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes at the owners' meetings the last 2 days. And we'll ask Ben Raven this tomorrow. Basically going, yeah, we really like our D-line depth. We got a lot of, think about edge rusher for a second. Of course, if there's a really good edge rusher at 28, I'm taking him. But I think they believe that a healthy Marcus Davenport, kick out Onwuzurike occasionally outside, Josh Paschal, Derek Barnes at times can rush the passer. I could be wrong, but maybe they feel like they're okay there. I don't, but maybe they feel like, hey, if we can get Davenport for a full season, he could be the guy opposite of Hutch. And of course, I didn't mention Hutchinson because I'm talking about the guys on the other side. So keep that in mind. I'm not telling you they're drafting a receiver at 28. I don't think it's happening. But what if they love Emeka from Ohio State and he's there at 28? That would stun some people, but I'm throwing it out there now that they are saying we've got to add some receiver depth. And they're saying that a lot more than we have to add another edge rusher. So interesting stuff from Dan Campbell today. I do want to add in a note about the offensive line and the performance of one Graham Glasgow last year. Dan Campbell was asked about that today. We'll get into that coming up next. We got a mock draft. We got rule changes and much, much more here on a Tuesday edition. First day of April. We are officially in draft month. Officially in draft month. And we're officially in Michelle and Sarah birthday month as well, right here on Locked On Lions. And our podcast. Oh my God. Can I talk? Can I speak English today? Our podcast, Locked On Lions, which has been here since 2016, is brought to you today by Monarch Money. Ever check into your bank account and wonder, where's all my money? Where did it all go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. All right. Instead of juggling multiple apps and different things, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner too is smooth, and it's more smooth than ever that you can track, share, and get all your personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances with our friends at Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Our little Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions, everybody. If you missed yesterday's show, we talked a lot about Brad Holmes and his comments from Monday down at the owners' meetings. We will do a mock draft today. I know it's mock draft Tuesday instead of Monday, but I wanted to get in all the Holmes things from yesterday. A name to remember when we're talking about right guard or left guard this coming season is Giovanni Manu. And I'm bringing him up first because Brad Holmes said there is a thought that maybe the big guy that they drafted last year in the 4th round, traded up to get, could be moved to guard. Question was asked today of Dan Campbell about the performance of Graham Glasgow, who last year at left guard with Zeitler over on the right side struggled, especially in the second half of the season. On Graham Glasgow, Campbell said today, quote, "You never know every year. Certainly you play that position and it's a year later, but Graham is somebody that we still value because he's got versatility." I think people forget that. Man, he can do an excellent job at center, as a matter of fact. So I think there are things he brings to us that are not always easy to find. We have confidence in him, yes. And there again, the fact that he can play all the positions, man, that lets you breathe easy. But at no point today when talking about Glasgow did Campbell lock in that he was going to be a starter. They asked about moving him back to right guard, where he was good 2 years ago. He said that's a thought. What about Christian Mahogany? Campbell said, you go back to right, and is it Mahogany on the left? Is it somebody we drafted? We're going to do our best to let these guys compete and see where they're at. I mean, do we try Manu at guard? That's a thought. We're going to try to let these guys compete a little bit and move them around and see what's right, see where we're at. It's not going to be set in stone, end quote. I remember Giovanni Manu was a tackle playing up in Canada in college. But it sounds like the Lions here on April 1st have no clue what they're doing at right and left guard. I think they have confidence that Glasgow can be better. I, for one, am moving him back to right guard. He was bad at left guard last year. Moving back to the right side where he was solid 2 years ago. Mahogany, to me, really, really looked good in the minutes that he played and the snaps that he took last year. But it would not, Brad Holmes did not rule out yesterday bringing in a veteran. Will Hernandez is out there coming off of an ACL injury. And it sounds like the Lions are open to drafting an offensive lineman as well, which will lead us to our mock draft Monday. In one more second here. I want one more thing I want to give a mention to, if I could find it. Oh, yeah. When asked yesterday by Dan Miller about the leaders of the team and staying the course and building with what the Lions have been doing the last 4 years, Campbell made reference yesterday to the guys on defense, and he mentioned Aiden Hutchinson. This was an interview with Dan Miller yesterday on Fox 2. Dan, the original Dan, he mentioned Aiden Hutchinson, Alex Anzalone, and right out of his mouth as well, he mentioned Derek Barnes. I think this team believes that Barnes is going to play a big role this year. Then he doubled down on that today and talked about the core of the team. He said, quote, this is Dan Campbell today, the nuts and bolts of what we are, of course, we've got our coaches, man this offense. It's Jared Goff, St. Brown, Gibbs, Montgomery. It's Frank, Sewell, Decker. I can keep going. It's J-Mo. The defense, he says, is Hutch. It's Alim. It's freaking Alex. It's T.A., Terry Arnold. It's Kirby. It's Branch. It's now Reed. I can keep going. And it's Barnes. That's what we are. So 2 days in a row, Dan Campbell has given a nice plug to Derek Barnes. There's a reason the Lions re-signed him to a 3-year deal this offseason. And there's a reason they feel like he's very, very important. Now, is he more important than Jack Campbell, who wasn't mentioned? I don't know about that. But 2 days in a row, Dan Campbell has gone out of his way to reference Derek Barnes. So take that for what it's worth. I think they're going to make him a big part of this team. The question is, will Derek Barnes be your starting Sam linebacker and somebody that is going to be more off the ball or not necessarily lined up right on the line? Or is Derek Barnes going to be somebody that is used more in the pass rushing game as an edge rusher? So we will see. But I wanted to throw that out there. All right, we didn't do it yesterday. Mock Draft Monday, alive and well on a Tuesday right here on Locked On Lions. And let's do the business when it comes to Mock Draft Monday on a Tuesday. Bucky Brooks, well-established, well-respected, NFL.com and draft expert, had his mock draft he put out late last week. His top 5, very quickly before we get to the Lions. Tennessee at 1, Cam Ward. Browns at 2, he has them taking Shedeur Sanders. So back-to-back quarterbacks go in this mock. At 3, Giants, Travis Hunter. At 4, Patriots, Abdul Carter. And at 5, Jacksonville taking Mason Graham, the D tackle from the University of Michigan. Lions at number 28 go offense on this mock draft, as Bucky Brooks has the Lions taking big Donovan Jackson, who we have discussed on this podcast, the guard from Ohio State. Jackson had to play tackle last year due to injuries, but Bucky Brooks writes, quote, Brad Holmes' master plan revolves around the trenches. Jackson is a day one starter with a nasty attitude and physical game to fit in perfectly with the Lions' dominant offensive line. So there you have it. Donovan Jackson, Lions at 28. I would not have an issue with that. We're sitting here right now on this very show talking about, is Glasgow a starter? Is Glasgow a swing guy? Will Mahogany definitely be a starter? The Lions have lost a starter in Kevin Zeitler, and they need depth along the offensive line. So I am all for the big fella Donovan Jackson as being, somebody the Lions would consider at number 28. That is for sure. Now, in this mock draft, though, Kenneth Grant, the D tackle from Michigan, slides all the way from 230 to number 30 with Buffalo. I don't see any scenario where Brad Holmes would pass up Kenneth Grant. I think he's really good, and I think he's a top 20 player in this draft. But he takes O-line, Ohio State, over D-line, Michigan, in his mock draft. And again, you could read the entire one at NFL.com. But it is intriguing, certainly, to have this discussion about where the Lions are going to go. And again, interesting, Holmes and Campbell both not exactly beating the drum loudly for another defensive lineman. I rarely mention Mekhi Wingo on this podcast, but if he can come back from injury, I think in year 2, he can be a really good player. But right now he's buried, sort of, behind Reeder, McNeill, and Onwuzurike, but he'll get more time as Alim is coming back from that torn ACL. And like we told you earlier, not going to be ready to start the season. All right, we got rule changes that have come up around the NFL, the ones that the Lions wanted to put in there. They got shut out. We will explain that coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. And LO Lions today brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Final Four is here. Yes, Florida and Auburn, Duke and Houston. You want to get in on the action this weekend? FanDuel is giving you the best chance to get in on it like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. And again, not a lot of Cinderellas with 4 1 seeds out there. All right. What about underdogs this weekend? Is Houston going to cover the 4.5 against Duke? Many people believe this could be the year for Kelvin Sampson. Remember, was it last year or the year before? Houston lost to Duke in the, I think it was the Elite Eight. What about Houston against Duke? What about tonight's Tigers-Mariners game? You want to put some money on that? You can at FanDuel. The FanDuel app also is simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Get in on the college hoops action all tournament long with FanDuel. All right, folks, we had told you a couple of weeks ago that the Detroit Lions were trying, very, very interested in getting rid of automatic first downs on defensive holding and illegal contact penalties for the 2025 season. The Lions have led the league the last 2 years in defensive holding. They're a man-heavy team. Their corners are grabby. DJ Reed, the newest Lions corner, is grabby. We know Terrion Arnold is physical as well. All right. That is something that the Lions wanted to happen. It did not go through. The Lions proposed this year, the NFL owners meetings was denied by a vote today and will not pass. They wanted to stop automatic first downs from being awarded on defensive holding and illegal contact penalties, but it didn't get the votes necessary to pass. So on 3rd and 16, even a defensive holding penalty is 5 yards, but it's also an automatic first down, and that will stay the same. The NFL also announced today that the roster adjustment proposal that the Lions wanted to make in terms of injured players being not counting against the full 53-man roster during a season, or I'm sorry, the 90-man roster at the start of the year was denied as well. Also, the Lions wanted to update the playoff seeding. They wanted wildcard teams that had better records than division winners to be seeded higher. Like last year when the Minnesota Vikings at 14, with 14 wins, were a 5 seed and had to go on the road to face a 10-win team that was the 4th seed, the Rams. Playoff seeding proposal has been officially tabled for later discussions, but will not go through at least this year. Now, the NFL did announce that they're going to be flexing Thursday night games with shorter notice, which means that, hold on, I got to see this. NFL owners have tweaked flexing. Yes. So this will be the 3rd year that the NFL is able to flex Thursday night games. The first 2 years, it was only flexed for weeks 13 through 17. Now, if you got 28 days notice, they can flex games later on in the season. And by the way, touchbacks now are going out to the 35-yard line, which again, the NFL wants to see more action on kickoffs. Last year we said, oh, they're doing the new kickoff rule and you're going to punch it up in the air and there's going to be more returns and there's going to be more of this and more of that. But as of right now, a lot of teams just spent a lot of time kicking the ball through the back of the end zone, and the other team started at the 30. Now, according to the rule changes, we are going to see the touchbacks going to the 35-yard line. Everybody's talking about the tush push. Dan Campbell said today he is against banning the tush push. He said, look, if a team is good at it, stop them. It's a physical game, stop them. Today, NFL owners have tabled discussions on the tush push. Packers authored the proposal to ban it, and it did earn the support of 16 NFL teams, but 24 NFL teams required a minimum of 24, I should say, to approve the change. So they're going to revisit that topic at the spring owners meetings next month in Minnesota. So it is not dead yet, the tush push, but is just being tabled for further discussion. Campbell said today, give me a break. You don't like it, stop it, which I agree with him as well. I mean, here's the thing. There are some people, and I was listening to Mike Valeni yesterday on the ticket talking about it. There are some people that feel it's not a football play, that the quarterback getting pushed by teammates is not a natural football play, and that should not be allowed. And, it's an advantage for the offense because they're running and they got a head of steam, and the defense is a little bit on their toes. To me, if you're the defense, you got to find a way to stop it. If you don't like a play that has been legal forever and it's a quarterback sneak, put 11 of your guys over the center and stop it. Where's the Campbell quote about it that I liked? I'm of the school, quote from Dan Campbell, that, hey, they found something and it's up to everybody else to stop it. Eagles have made this very, very popular. We know the Buffalo Bills are very good at it as well. Just stop it if you don't like it. And they're tabling it till May. So we'll see. All right. Ben Raven, the great Ben Raven, mlive.com, covers the Lions for that operation, is going to join us tomorrow. We'll get his thoughts on everything we've talked about the last 2 days from the owners' meetings in terms of what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell had to say. Thanks for making us your first listen, everybody. Checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Don't forget, Locked On Sports Detroit on YouTube with Jake Riepma after every Red Wing game. He's got a postcast. After every Pistons game, he's got a postcast. And after every Tigers game as well, Jake will be on tomorrow night after the big Pistons Thunder game. Isaiah Stewart got a 2-game suspension today from our old friend Joe Dumars. Everybody else got 1-game suspension. So Beef Stew's got a reputation, ladies and gentlemen. But we are back again tomorrow with Ben Raven. Thanks, everybody.